The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting a stark glare over the rows of lockers. I thought I'd have the place to myself. Late nights were my sanctuary after a grueling day. Steam clung to the mirrors, blurring my reflection as I stood there, towel draped loosely around my hips, still dripping from the shower. Then came the sound, a sharp creak as the heavy door swung open. "Leo." I turned instinctively, my voice faltering as my stepson stepped into view. His eyes locked onto me, wide and startled, a deer caught in headlights. "Sorry," he stammered, his cheeks flushing. "Didn't know you were still here." For a moment, we just stood there, the air thick with something I couldn't name. His gaze flicked downward, then darted away, and I could see the struggle in his expression, the confusion, the tension. My heart pounded as an unspoken question lingered between us. The door slammed shut behind Leo, the metallic clang echoing through the empty locker room. My heart thudded loudly in my chest, each beat magnifying the silence that surrounded us. His presence felt heavier than the air, laden with something neither of us dared to name. "Didn't think anyone stayed this late," he muttered, his voice rough, his eyes fixed on a spot over my shoulder. I reached for my shirt, hanging limply on a nearby bench. "I thought everyone was gone too," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the sudden tightness in my throat. "What brings you back?" Leo hesitated, shifting on his feet. "Left my bag. Figured I'd grab it before heading home." He gestured vaguely to the lockers, but he didn't move to retrieve it. His gaze darted to me, and for a split second, I caught it, the faintest flicker of curiosity mixed with something deeper. I turned my back to him, pulling the shirt over my head to break the intensity of the moment. The fabric clung to my damp skin as I forced myself to focus. This was ridiculous. He was my stepson, practically a kid, and yet, "Your mom was asking about you earlier," I said, trying to steer the conversation to safer ground. "She said you've been distant lately." Leo's jaw tightened, and he crossed his arms. "She always worries too much, and you don't talk to her enough," I replied, a hint of admonition in my tone. "You should." "Why do you care?" he interrupted, his voice sharper than I expected. His eyes bore into mine, a challenge lurking beneath the surface. "You're not my dad?" The words stung, but it wasn't the first time he'd thrown them my way. Still, there was something different this time, less anger, more vulnerability. "I care because I'm part of this family, Leo," I said, keeping my tone even. "Whether you like it or not." He exhaled heavily, running a hand through his damp hair. "Yeah, well, I didn't ask for this family," he mumbled, his words barely audible. The silence stretched again, punctuated only by the distant drip of a shower head. I sat on the bench, trying to decide if I should push or let it go. Leo finally moved to his locker, yanking it open with more force than necessary. "I didn't mean to snap," he said quietly, his back to me. "It's okay," I replied. "I get it. This hasn't been easy for either of us." When he turned back, his expression had softened, but there was still tension in the way he held himself. "You're not as bad as I thought you'd be," he admitted, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Well, thanks," I said, laughing softly. "I'll take that as a compliment." He hesitated, his eyes lingering on me again. This time, the look lasted a beat too long, and my stomach twisted. There was again that spark of something forbidden, something dangerous. I stood, brushing past him as I reached for my duffel bag. The air between us crackled with unspoken words, with possibilities that neither of us dared to voice. "Leo," I started, my voice low, almost a whisper. "Yeah?" he asked, turning to face me fully. "This whatever this is," I said, gesturing vaguely between us. "It's not a road we should go down." He blinked, startled by my boldness. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," I said, my tone firmer now. "I've seen the way you look at me, and if I'm being honest, I felt it too." His breath hitched, and his face flushed. "I don't—" "Stop," I interrupted, shaking my head. "You don't have to say it, but we both know it's there." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The weight of my words hung in the air, pressing down on us. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the pull of curiosity, the fear of what it meant, the reluctance to cross a line he wasn't even sure existed. "You're married to my mom," he finally said, his voice trembling. This is wrong. I know, I said, my own voice cracking. And that's why it has to stop here. Now. He looked away, his jaw tight, his hands clenched into fists. I don't even know what I'm feeling, he admitted. This is all so messed up. I wanted to comfort him, to say something that would make it all better. But the truth was, I didn't have the answers. All I knew was that this thing between us, whatever it was, could destroy everything. Let's just pretend this never happened, I said, my voice barely audible. It's better for both of us. Leo nodded slowly, but the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. He grabbed his bag and headed for the door without another word, leaving me alone in the suffocating silence of the locker room. As the door clicked shut behind him, I sank onto the bench, my head in my hands. I'd drawn the line, but the question lingered. Could I keep myself from crossing it? The week after that night in the locker room was a blur. Every shared glance at the dinner table, every accidental brush of shoulders in the hallway, it all felt charged, like the air before a storm. I thought the tension would dissipate with time, but instead, it grew, wrapping itself around us like a vice. It came to a head one Friday evening. I was alone in the house, sorting through a pile of bills on the kitchen counter, when I heard the front door slam. My heart skipped a beat as Leo's voice called out. Mom? She's not here, I replied, keeping my tone as casual as I could. She went to your aunt's for the weekend. Leo appeared in the doorway, his gym bag slung over one shoulder. His expression was unreadable, but there was a determination in his posture that immediately put me on edge. Oh, he said, dropping the bag at his feet. So, it's just us. Yeah, I said, busying myself with the papers in front of me. You hungry? There's leftover pasta in the fridge. No, he said, stepping further into the room. We need to talk. I froze, my hand hovering over an envelope. Leo. No, he interrupted, his voice firm. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. We can't keep ignoring what happened. I turned to face him, my stomach twisting into knots. We agreed to let it go. You said that. He shot back, his eyes flashing with frustration. But I can't. I can't stop thinking about it, about you. The raw honesty in his voice hit me like a punch to the gut. I leaned back against the counter, gripping the edge for support. Leo, this isn't right. You know that. Do I? He challenged, stepping closer. Because nothing in my life has ever felt as real as this. My breath caught as he closed the distance between us. His presence was overwhelming, his emotions pouring out like a flood. Leo, stop, I said, my voice trembling. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do, he insisted, his voice breaking. I've tried to fight it, believe me. I've told myself it's wrong 1,000 times. But I can't keep lying to myself. Or to you. He reached out, his hand brushing against mine, and the contact sent a jolt of electricity through me. I should have pulled away. I should have shut this down immediately. But instead, I stood there, paralyzed by the weight of his words and the intensity of his gaze. You don't mean that, I said weakly, though my own resolve was crumbling. I do, he whispered, and I think you feel it too. The air between us was thick with unspoken desires, with everything we'd been too afraid to admit. My heart pounded in my chest as I searched for the strength to do the right thing. This will destroy us, I said, my voice barely audible. It'll destroy your mom, your family, everything. Maybe, he said, his voice softening. But isn't it already destroying us to pretend it's not there? I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. Leo, I'm your stepdad. I married your mom. This is wrong on so many levels. Then tell me you don't feel it, he said, his voice breaking. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't want this as much as I do. The challenge hung in the air, daring me to deny what I knew in my heart was true. But how could I? The pull between us was undeniable, and no matter how hard I tried to resist, it only grew stronger. I can't, I admitted, my voice shaking. I can't lie to you. His eyes searched mine, and in that moment, everything else fell away. The guilt, the fear, the consequences. All that remained was the truth, raw and undeniable. Before I could think better of it, he closed the remaining distance between us, his lips brushing against mine in a tentative, almost desperate kiss. It was a moment of pure vulnerability, a culmination of everything we'd tried to suppress. For a second, I let myself sink into it, my hands gripping his shoulders as the world seemed to tilt on its axis. But reality crashed back in, and I pulled away, my chest heaving. "No," I said, shaking my head. "We can't. This can't happen." His face crumpled, and he took a step back, his eyes filled with pain. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to." "Leo, stop," I said, holding up a hand. "This isn't your fault. It's mine. I should have been stronger, drawn clearer boundaries." He nodded slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. I don't know how to make this go away." "Neither do I admitted, my voice breaking. "But we have to try. For both our sakes." The silence that followed was deafening, the weight of our shared guilt pressing down on us. Finally, Leo turned and grabbed his bag, heading for the door. As he left, I sank to the floor, my head in my hands. The line between right and wrong had never felt so blurred, and I knew that whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same. The house felt emptier after that night. Leo avoided me, retreating into his room or leaving before I woke. Conversations were minimal, punctuated only by his polite, curt responses when his mother was around. She didn't notice the shift, but I did. Every quiet dinner, every glance he avoided, was a reminder of the line we'd almost crossed. I thought the distance would help, that the space between us would cool whatever had been brewing. But all it did was leave an ache I couldn't explain, a hollow reminder of what we couldn't have. Then, one evening, he came home late. His footsteps were hesitant as he entered the living room, where I sat nursing a glass of wine. He froze when he saw me, and for a moment, I thought he'd turn and leave again. But instead, he stepped inside, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "We need to talk," he said, his voice steady but low. I set the glass down, bracing myself. "Okay." He didn't sit, hovering near the doorway, as though keeping his distance would make the conversation easier. "I can't keep living like this," he began, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Avoiding you, pretending nothing happened. It's killing me." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know. It's been hard for me, too." He looked up at that, his eyes searching mine. "So, what do we do?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. I wanted to give him an easy answer, to say something that would make it all better. But the truth was, there was no easy way out of this. I started, then paused, choosing my words carefully. "I think we have to figure out what's most important. To you, to me, to your mom. And we have to respect that, even if it means..." I trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "Even if it means letting go." He finished for me, his voice trembling. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "Yeah." He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. "But how? How do we just stop feeling this way?" "We don't," I said softly. "Feelings don't just disappear. But we can choose what we do with them. We can choose to do the right thing." Leo laughed bitterly. "The right thing? It feels so simple when you say it like that." "It's not simple," I admitted. "It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But we have to try, for your mom, for this family, for ourselves." He nodded slowly, his shoulders slumping under the weight of my words. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are," I said, standing and closing the distance between us. I placed a hand on his shoulder, meeting his gaze. "You're stronger than you think." For a moment, we just stood there, the air between us heavy with everything we couldn't say. Then he stepped back, his expression resolute. "I need to leave for a while," he said, his voice steady. "Clear my head. Figure out who I am without all of this." I swallowed hard, the thought of him leaving hitting me like a punch to the gut. But I knew he was right. "If that's what you need," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "then do it." He nodded, a small, sad smile playing at his lips. "Thank you." The next morning, he packed his things and left for a friend's place across town. He promised his mom it was for work and personal growth, and she believed him, wishing him luck with tears in her eyes. I stayed silent, offering a stoic goodbye that belied the storm raging inside me. Weeks turned into months. The house felt quieter without him, and though the tension had lifted, it left behind a strange emptiness. His mother and I carried on, The routine of life, a steady drumbeat that masked the lingering ache. Then, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I received a text from Leo. Leo, I've been thinking about what you said, about doing the right thing. I'm trying. I really am. But some days, it's hard not to wonder what could have been. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. After a long moment, I replied, it's hard for me too. But I'm proud of you for facing it head on. You're stronger than you think. There was a long pause before his response came through. Leo, thanks. For everything. I'll always care about you. I didn't reply immediately, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Finally, I typed out the only thing I could say without breaking. Same here. As I set the phone down, I felt a strange sense of peace. The path we'd chosen wasn't easy, but it was the right one. And though the ache of what might have been would never fully fade, I knew we'd both find our way, separately, but stronger for it.